Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Ryden. Most everyone is familiar with the true story of Oskar Schindler and his efforts to save more than 1,000 Jews from Nazi concentration camps during World War II. But just as amazing and more complex is the story of Raoul Wallenberg, the Swedish diplomat who, despite having no experience in diplomacy or covert operations, saved thousands more. And one man who not only knows the details of Wallenberg's life, but was on a mission to save him and bring him to justice joins us now. The book is titled Raoul Wallenberg's Champion, Morris Wolff's 42-year fight for justice, and it's written by Morris Wolff, who joins us today. Professor Wolff, thanks so much for joining us on Global Book Network. We are honored to have you here.
Pleasure to be with you.
Before we get to your role in the Wallenberg story, can you give us a brief description of the work he did in occupied Hungary in 1944?
One has to start with the idea that he was a man of adventure. And one of his great adventures was coming to the United States and falling in love with our way of life. He and I had a lot in common. We were both left-handed, both contrarians, and both middle child within the family, elbowing out to get attention, and both very intelligent and both quite immodest about their intelligence.
Proud of your humility. Okay.
And both avid bike riders and both writers, as a matter of fact. He came over to the University of Michigan.
Right.
And by God's good chance, he roomed with a Jewish roommate, Albert King, who took him home to Miami for holidays. And Wallenberg actually fell in love with the goodness of Jewish home life. And when the idea came up that Jews were being slaughtered in Hungary, Wallenberg volunteered immediately to go and do what he could to save Jewish lives. And people asked, well, you're not even Jewish, you're Lutheran. He said, why are you doing this? Why are you saving Jewish lives? He said, I had no choice. Now, when that story came across my desk, I had no choice. I was so taken by his goodness, his selflessness. And someone wrote my resume, said, Morris Wolff, a life devoted to selflessness. Well, that's nice to have that kind of accolade.
What were some of the things that Wallenberg did in a practical level? He set up Swedish
he bought properties, and the properties were 4 or 5 stories tall with rooms. And he said, these are properties owned by Swedish people. You can't come in here, he said to the German Nazi stormtroopers. And he was a good bluffer. I mean, he was able to convey the idea that what he was saying was true. And he was very romantic, too. When he was at home, he was very busy dating Viveka Lindfors and Ingrid Bergman. And as I told many people, because I became his lawyer, with the permission of his family, I sued the Soviets. And all my friends at Yale Law School said, you can't sue the Soviets in an American court. Are you crazy? And I took a lot of gaff, but the noise quieted down when I won a $39 million judgment in the U.S. federal court against the Soviets for their having violated diplomatic immunity.
Right.
Wallenberg was a Swedish diplomat, and first time in the history of mankind and of U.S. jurisdiction that a judgment of this kind was ever rendered.
Well, let me go back a second here, because Wallenberg was doing all these things, handing out passports while, being shot at. I mean, he was doing amazing work. The Soviets got him back into Lubyanka prison in 1947, and apparently a lot of people thought he was dead, either by a heart attack or by execution. But you got a phone call in 1983 from his brother that convinced you that he was still alive. Tell us about that phone call and what got you involved.
Not only a phone call that got me involved, but I went over to Russia, and people who buy my book, matter of fact, two books, one's called Wallenberg's Guardian that I wrote, 42 years of representing Raoul Wallenberg. And in that book, I go with David Evans, our U.S. ambassador to Russia, graduate of Harvard, and 40 years our ambassador to Russia. David and I went to Russia. We went up the Volga River. We went to Kazan. David and I met Wallenberg for one vital, happy hour, which you can read about in our book. We thought we were taking him home at that time, but the Russians, in typical fashion, um, reneged on their commitment to release Wallenberg. He said to us at that time, turn your face towards God, and God will turn his face towards you, which is amazing because that's in terms of chutzpah, whatever way of adopting Jewish faith. That's a Jewish prayer that this Christian man had adopted all these Judaic things.
Now, you did all the work for Wallenberg pro bono, and you kept running into one wall after another. Even after you won the $39 million judgment, it still was one thing after another, the banging your head against the wall.
But these are all successes. As you say, one victory after another. It was great to get the victory of the 39 million. That gave us evidence and proof that what we were doing was correct. That is not a goofball at work. This is a bright young lawyer, Amherst College, summa cum laude, Yale Law School, selected by Bobby Kennedy himself to be in the Office of Legal Counsel right out of law school. I'm proud of that. History's right hand man, somebody gives me that title. I think that's funny in as much as I'm left handed, but I take the title anyway. Um, I love the humor of life and knowing people like yourself. I'm honored to meet you and uh, very pleased that you took the time to arrange for an interview with me. I opened the door to the colloquy with Justice Roberts. I want an explanation for why he should have buried for years this fact, why someone as reliable as Jerusalem Post has this, why the Jerusalem Post called me, why Reagan made the statement, Mr. Wallenberg, I am making you a citizen of the United States, and I hope that one day you may sit beneath the trees planted in your honor at Yad Vashem. That's a direct quote
Mm.
of Ronald Reagan.
Mhm. Well, your father had a saying, the only sin in life is to aim low. Well, you definitely did not aim low throughout your life. It's been fascinating. You met Eleanor Roosevelt, you worked alongside JFK, you helped formulate the Civil Rights Act, you saw Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech from the fifth row, and you speak four languages. Good grief. When is the story of your life coming out in book form?
Well, my dad used to say the only sin in life is low aim,
Yeah.
but he was a character. He had four sons. He sent all four sons to Amherst College, paid tuition for all four,
Mm.
saw one son into being a trustee of Amherst College. Uh, One night he was with me outside the uh, Senate night session, and I was working for John Sherman Cooper at the time, which I truly enjoyed, man of great integrity. And LBJ walked up, and I was standing respectfully quiet, and my dad was there, and he was so thrilled, immigrant to America. And LBJ shakes hands with him, and he says, to LBJ, Hiram, how the hell are you?
Oh,
I said, "Wow, how embarrassing is that?" He's saying, he's calling the vice president of the United States Hiram. I said, "Dad, what the heck was that all about?" He said, "I don't know. He put his hand out to me to say hello. I wasn't going to embarrass him, man." Uh, we
well,
had a lot of great nights.
what's next for you? Like I say, you've had a fascinating life. What's next?
Well, to stay in touch with the good Lord above, these beautiful days here in Florida, to stay well behaved with my angel of a wife, Patricia, and to teach if I can. I've been invited to go to Bogota, Colombia, and teach English to school kids. And I think that would be something I could learn something about.
You've
And
also been a guest lecturer on the Holland America cruise lines.
yeah, yeah, that's good time. Princess lines in Holland America. And I'm just happy to be alive.
Well, it's
Just
good to have you on this side of the grass. So,
thank you. Thank you.
the book is Raoul Wallenberg's Champion: Morris Wolff's 42-year fight for justice, and it's available wherever you buy books, and it is a real page turner. Professor Wolff, thanks you again for your services to humanity and for taking the time to join us today.
Well, I appreciate very much your taking the time to see me. It's also available on Amazon, on Kindle, on Barnes and Noble,
I bet
big
people won't have a
bookstore.
hard time finding it.
I think it's available all over the place. And
Folks,
thank you for giving me a platform to espouse my thoughts and views.
you are more than welcome. We're honored to have you here. Folks,
Thank you.
thank you for spending a few minutes with us here on the Global Book Network. I'm Paul Ryden. We'll see you next time.